Hello everyone, I'm Wildicv, and in this tutorial I'll be showing you how to use loops. Now, there's three kinds of loops in programming. There's a for loop, a while loop, and a do while loop. Each of these loops have a purpose, which I'll try to explain. So let's open up our IDE. Alright, so let's start with the for loop. A for loop is simple. It looks just like this. Now, that's a simple declaration of a for loop. It takes three parameters. It takes the incrementer, the conditional, and finally how much to increment by. So just remember, this is the basic format for a for loop. Now let's make one. Go to our code. In order for us to use a for loop, unlike other languages, in other languages you can just put the incrementer declaration inside the for loop. Well, in UnrealScript we can't do this. So first we have to declare our incrementer variable. Local int, let's name it adda. So that'll be our increment value. Next, let's make the for loop. So for adda, let's make it start off by first in our for loop we set adda to 0. Then what we're going to want to do is our conditional. So while adda is less than 100, and then we increment adda by 1. So basically what this does is all the code put into the for in between these brackets will run 100 times. So if we were to put this, we would see the word testing looped 100 times. It's pretty cool considering of everything you can do. Let's say you want to spawn 100 characters, or you want to do a certain function only so many times. That's the basic for a for loop. Now of course you can put advanced conditionals in here. So if adda is less than 100 and adda is greater than 50, which would stop. So if this conditional is true, this will never run because adda is never greater than 50. But it's just to show you that it can handle a giant condition. And that's all that there is for a for loop. Another thing is, of course, you can do all operations here. Adda times 100, etc. So that's a for loop. Next, we got a while loop. Now, a while loop looks like this. While condition loop this. Okay, so a while takes one conditional and then it just loops until that condition is met. So for example, while adda is less than 10. So here we have it's where every time it's going to go to cycle through the code, it's going to check if adda is less than 10. If it is, it loops. If not, it continues on. So usually in while loops, if we were to put this will loop indefinitely because we never increment adda. So adda will always be less than 10, and so this loop will constantly be looping. Now you want to avoid this at all costs because this will, after it eats up all the resources, it will crash the program and it just slows down a computer, which makes most game players very unhappy. So always remember to have an increment value or some condition that changes that while loop. So while adda is less than 10, and then at the end adda plus plus. So we increment our condition, our incremental variable, so it will stop after 10 loops. And that's it. Just remember all your conditions go here and you'll be fine. Finally, there's the do while loop. Do, the code goes here. Finally, there's the do while, which in UnrealScript is called do until. So it looks pretty much the same. Do, then the code goes here. until condition. So one key thing to remember is in a do while loop, it will be a run at least once because the check doesn't come until after the code has been ran. So same thing. Always have an incremental variable, or it'll run indefinitely. So at the end of the code, plus plus. And that's basically it. Um, I could compile this and show y'all how it looks and runs. The only issue is Visual Studio crashes on me, and I doubt anybody wants to see that. But that's the basic setup for loops. Now there's one more loop, which is called the continue loop, but I'll cover that along with some other things I promised to cover in a later tutorial. Right now, I think that should suit you. Well, I'm Wildicv, and this concludes my loops tutorial. If you have questions, please PM me or comment this. I'm sure someone will be able to help. Thank you.